Welcome back for the next major topic of our lectures today, which is public health and the aging population. This is an important part of population growth as well. If you think back to our graphic illustration of the demographic transition, part of the reason that we see population growth in countries and cultures is because we do see people living longer. Here in the United States, we are still seeing the average age of Americans increase. So people are living longer, and that increases the average age of all of us. And we're also seeing another really important social pressure, which is that baby boomers are reaching retirement age. So that group of Americans who were born post-World War II here in the United States, very large demographic subpopulation, are now reaching retirement age. They are living longer than the generations before them, which is wonderful news. But as we mentioned during our lectures on healthcare costs, older people in general tend to be more expensive to take care of. They tend to be in poorer health and also require more care. One of the issues that we've run into here is that many of these costs, of course, are paid by the Medicare system, right? This is that federally governed system that if you're an American citizen and you turn 65, you now have access to. Almost all of these folks are relying on that system for their medical care. And again, it's that, basically pyramid scheme where the healthy young workers pay in at the bottom and then older folks are paid out at the top. And we're seeing that we just see this unsustainable model where the demands are getting higher and higher at the same time that the healthy young workforce is shrinking. Of course, this is the perfect opportunity for public health to intervene. If we can improve lifestyle and lifestyle choices in youth and middle age, then we should see the payoff in terms of increased quality of life and decreased costs for older Americans. So when we look at what that actually means, the aging of the American population, we've got a couple of numbers to talk about. First of all, the average American in 1900, so the beginning of the 20th century, lived to be 47 years old. By the time we get out to 2009, we're actually seeing that in excess of 78. So a really dramatic increase in lifespan over that time. We've talked about lots of reasons this semester why that would be true. We've got so many people, in fact, who are living into older age that we now subcategorize them. We've got our young old, 65 to 74, our aged, 75 to 84, and then the oldest old, 85 and up. The good news is that more than half of the people in all of these age categories still consider themselves to be in good, very good, or excellent health. When we get out to our oldest old, about 70% of folks put themselves in that category, and about 12% of them do live full-time in nursing homes. So when we look at how that breaks down, there's some numbers and some ideas about their own self-rated health. When we look at trends in aging, some of the more specific statistics about what's going on, we do know that among all of those age groups, that the number of women in those groups outnumbers the number of men. So we've got in our oldest old, twice as many women as men in that 85 and up age group. If you look at people who've made it to the age of 75, most of the women who are still alive are widowed and live alone, while most of the men who are still alive at that point are married and living with their wives. So you can make of that what you will, but that's what the data tells us. One of the trends that we see manifest itself this way is that men, of course, are more likely to die younger, but women are living, but not necessarily living in good health because they're more likely to have those chronic disabling conditions that can make living to an older age less desirable in terms of quality of life, at least. Okay, a couple of more ways to assess the trends there. We've made really good progress in terms of the people over the age of 65, so our older adults who are living in poverty. In 1974, we had a full 15% of that population that was living at or below the federal poverty level, and now we're down to 9% in 2010. That's a population level figure. When we do dig into subgroups, we see, as always, health disparities take effect. We definitely have more older women living in poverty than older men. And older people of color are more likely to be living in poverty as well. A lot of this has to do with increased levels of education at the societal level. We've seen education improve dramatically, and we know how well that correlates with better health. So we've got some good news in terms of poverty statistics, at least. One of the things that we look at when we talk about our older populations is this idea of compression of mortality. So when we look at how the age of death breaks down over, say, an age cohort, take all the people who were born in 1945 and look to see when they die. One of our goals in public health is to move people down the line. So we see more and more people living closer to the biological limit of their lifespan. If we expect that most Americans can live until they're 80, we'll see fewer and fewer deaths in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. See it gradually start to increase, but really try to limit those mortality rates until we see people closer to the end of their natural lifespan. Another thing to think about, though, as we think about the idea of people living longer, is compression of morbidity. So morbidity, basically sickness, and we're looking not just to preserve length of life, but also quality of life. We do have some evidence that that's occurring. If we look at the people in 1982 over the age of 65 who consider themselves disabled, 26.5%, and then in 2004 down to 19%. So we do see some evidence that folks who are living into those older years are healthier now than they were in the past. We definitely like to see that continue to improve. In terms of what it takes to continue to live to a healthy old age, we've got all kinds of anti-aging protocols. Everybody's always looking for a silver bullet, a way to improve quality of life and lifespan. If we're going to point to a single predictive quality, a single factor, we can point to exercise as the silver bullet to preserve good health into old age. I'm going to show a quick video of some current research that should help to explain what we're talking about.
Discovery Channel. Physicians often associate physical decline with the patient's age, but new evidence is encouraging physicians to think again. Doctors now know that patients do not experience a true physical decline until their 7th decade of life. Research conducted by Dr. Vonda Wright, an orthopedic surgeon at UPMC, indicates that we should look at aging as a matter of activity level and not just a matter of years. She says that by saving mobility, doctors can save lives.
Almost a decade ago, we began looking at what really is the role of activity in aging, because we do not believe that the way we age in a sedentary manner is the true way that we're capable of living throughout our lifestyles. Our goal is to change the way we age in this country, not only how we perceive ourselves to age, but also look at what we're capable of modifying. So we've done a series of studies in masters athletes. What we found in our first study that was published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine in 2008 is that we do not begin to significantly decline until our 7th decade. It's not until we hit our 75th birthday that many of us start to really slow down and feel the effects of aging. What that says for the general population is that slowing down before that age is probably due to the lifestyle choices that we make and sedentary living, not simply the aging process. The second and third studies in our series at the Center for Sports Medicine at UPMC looked at bone health in masters athletes. Again, we're taking out the variable of sedentary living, which we know is detrimental to bones. And what we found in those two studies is that not only are we capable of maintaining bone mass into our 70s and 80s, but when the exercise is impact, meaning walking, jogging, jumping rope, playing team sports, that it is as important to impact our bones as the other significant factors on bone health, such as age, being female, bone density, and family health. The fourth study, and perhaps the most important and exciting to me, is a study we just published on lean muscle mass across the lifespan. We looked at 40 masters athletes who are not professional athletes. They're simply recreational athletes who consistently work out 3 to 4 times a week. What we found is that even into the 7th and 8th decade, our recreational masters athletes were able to maintain their muscle mass, their strength, and did not have fatty infiltration into their muscle mass. The 40-year-old MRI looked like the 74-year-old MRI. We know that exercise is a fantastic medicine if used chronically to change more than 33 diseases. The diseases that we can control with something as little as 30 minutes of exercise a day are cumulatively called chronic sedentary death syndrome. It is encouraging to know that no matter how your patients present to you, whether they're full-time masters athletes now or have not stepped away from the couch in 20 years, that we are capable of aging in a way that is vital and active. There is never an age or a skill level when your patients cannot take control of their health and you cannot prescribe for them the best medicine for aging. What we know is that prescribing 30 minutes of brisk exercise.
I'm going to hold it up there. This video is actually targeted towards primary care physicians, and she goes on to dispense some advice about how to work with patients. I think two really important takeaways here. I love the way that she calls the group of chronic diseases that we've been discussing all semester long chronic sedentary death syndrome. Does a really good job of just throwing into focus exactly what it is that we're talking here. And then, of course, this other idea that, by looking internally at muscle mass, that active 70-year-olds were no different than active 40-year-olds. So if we think about what that means, by developing a lifetime habit of physical activity now, we could be helping to address many of the health problems that we associate with older age, but really, in fact, don't have anything to do with it. So if you're fortunate enough this week to be spending some time with older relatives, go for a walk. Actually, you're welcome to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back to talk about some other important health issues for older folks, starting with visual impairment.